Hey people, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And I know for the past year or so, it has been very popular to make guides complaining about how bad the game is, complaining about how hard the game is, and how bad loot is. However, today I want to have a bit of a different approach. We already all know how there isn't any good drops anymore in this league, there aren't any good builds to play, but I want to have a deeper approach and a deeper explanation to why GGG is doing what they're doing and what you can expect next. So, yeah, it's only gonna get worse from here. I know people say it can only get better. Well, we've been saying that for the past year, and it has only been getting worse, and I'll explain why very briefly. So, for the past couple of years, since I would say about 2020, we have been having a lot of problems. Problems such as really bad league starts. In Ultimatum, for the first 2 to 3 days of the league, the game was completely unplayable. You couldn't play, a bunch of streamers got paid to stream the game, such as Shroud. He gets paid about $15,000 to stream PoE on launch, and he couldn't even play the game. In Metamorph, for the first 2 weeks, we couldn't really play the game because the game would be constantly crashing, and the GGG was on Christmas break and they wouldn't even be able to fix it. In Harvest, we also had a lot of problems that haven't been resolved until 3 to 4 weeks into the league. Now, all of that is mostly negligence in my opinion. They have not been able to rent out any servers, additional servers for the league launch. They have not experienced or expected as many people to play, and overall they just wanted to cut costs on the league and on the overall player experience. GGG have previously stated that most of their revenue comes from selling supporter packs, and they don't really care about player retention. All they care is about the first couple of weeks of the league, and then onward they're just going to be working on the next league and having minimal attention to the league mechanics themselves. And you can definitely feel that because most people play for about 2 weeks and then they quit the game because it gets boring or because some of the features that people were expecting have not really been coming through. Now, as you can see on this chart, PoE have been gaining popularity. PoE have been getting more popular since 2020. However, the decline in player base has been getting faster. Every time a new league would come out, roughly 1 month into the league, most of the player base would already quit the game and just wait for the next league. So what does that mean for us? PoE has been developing towards becoming PoE 2. I think it's very apparent that some of the decisions they have been making is based on PoE 2. If you look at this gameplay clip, here's how bosses look like in PoE 2 and how kind of encounters are supposed to work in PoE 2. As you can see, the fights themselves have a lot more mechanics. The fights themselves are going to be harder. They're going to be harder and they're going to be more mechanically balanced, and you won't really have the same gameplay as you used to have back in PoE 1, let's say in Delirium League, where you can just walk in and one-shot the boss and keep on moving. Now, I know this is just a boss, but overall design that have been showcasing in PoE 2 pretty much ends up being you're locked in a boss room, and the boss itself has a bunch of mods, has a bunch of different mechanics, and you can't choose bosses, you can't choose mechanics, and you actually have to fight the boss. Here is a look at how rare monster encounters should look like, in their opinion. As you can see, most of the monsters are white, until the mini-boss, which is effectively a rare monster, spawns, and the rare monster is going to have its own mechanics, locking you in and making it kind of be a 1v1 against the rare monster. This is called a mini-boss, however, the mini-boss encounter is effectively a rare encounter. This is what they have been pushing for in their Nemesis mechanics, this is what they have been pushing for in the past couple of leagues where they don't want to have as many rare monsters in our map. They want us to have an encounter. What an encounter means is that you actually participate in fighting a monster. You're not going to be just one-shotting mobs and moving on. You're going to be actually fighting the mobs. Now, this mechanic by itself would sound good, but that's not PoE. PoE is a game where you run in a circle and everything dies. PoE is a grindfest. PoE is a game where you can make the dumbest meme build possible, and it still works and it still can destroy all content. However, the more patches we've been getting, the more leagues we've been getting, it has been going down, down, down to a point where most builds and most archetypes are not really viable. A peak of Path of Exile was Delirium. The reason for it is because Delirium actually allowed us to have a lot more freedom to explore different mechanics. Clusters and different conversions and different unique jewels that we have received in Delirium have actually stuck around so hard that most builds rely on having those clusters. Most builds work off the clusters compared to back before Delirium, where we didn't have such technologies and most builds were very one-dimensional. Now, since Delirium League, we have been losing power. I would say we've been losing power before that, but Delirium League have received one of its strongest nerfs. Delirium League was very popular for its Herald stacking meta, where you could effectively have massive aura stacking without actually having auras. You could have different buffs, and you would amplify those buffs, giving more damage. Now, the build itself was quite expensive. It was very fun to play, but it got nerfed 2 weeks into the league when people already spent a whole bunch of money playing it. Now, most of you might not know, but it has been 2 years since Delirium. And let's see what we really received, what kind of league mechanics we have received, what kind of mechanics in general we have received since. I would say personally my favorite league was Legion, which happened in 2019. It's been almost 3 years now since 2019. And since then, we have been receiving very minor league mechanics that don't really have a endgame potential. They don't have any real gameplay behind them. They're mostly just you get a bunch of monsters, you kill the monsters, and you move on. For example, Blight, it's just a grindfest. You build your pumps, and they do the work for you. You just wait 5 minutes until the monsters die, and you move on. Every league mechanic that I've seen so far has been slowing down the map experience. Back in Bestiary League, when I started playing this game, the game was a lot faster. Most maps didn't really take that much time, and most maps weren't really that difficult or challenging because you could farm lower tier maps and make pretty decent profits. In the Metamorph, we actually had to pick up our own organs from the monster and building the monster gradually after some time. And once you killed the final boss, you could summon the monster and kill it again for additional rewards. Delirium, obviously everyone knows Delirium, has been very popular since it came out. However, every league mechanic since, I would say Legion has been having insane nerfs. Pretty much since forever. They have been insanely nerfing every single league mechanic to make it unviable to target farm in most cases. Of course, I know you can farm legions now and you can make decent profits, but what you have to understand, all of those mechanics are a shadow of what they used to be. For example, in Betrayal League, we used to get scarabs. Scarabs have introduced map juicing. Those scarabs got nerfed twice to give you half the rewards they used to give you. For example, a gilded divination scarab used to give you 300% more divination cards, which meant that if you bought some divination scarabs and, for example, farmed towers, you probably expect 1 or 2 nurses almost every map if you're juicing that hard, which I was actually personally doing. I was having fun doing it. I thought it was very cool. Back then, divination scarabs weren't as easily accessible, but they were still pretty fun to use, and a lot of people have been using them and making tons of profits. Now, Legion, I personally run 5A Legion. I was following Grimraw's Self-Curse TS, and I was having tons of fun, because the league mechanic itself, the 5A Legion, would actually give you about 5 to 10 times more loot than it does right now. Currently, Legion's mostly just a mean of selling people experience and leveling gems. The rewards from the league mechanic itself are pretty minuscule. I would say they're pretty bad. You definitely would not be making any money if you're running them yourself. They nerfed the level of Legion, 5 Legions. They used to give you even more experience, and they also nerfed the rewards additionally. Some of the bases that would drop from Legions would actually cost 5 to 10 exalts. The exalts themselves would drop very, very often, and overall you'd just be making tons of currency if you're farming Legions, 5 Legions. Now that's not even possible. When it came to Blight, Blight was mostly a meme league. No one really cared about it because it really got released at the same time as the World of Warcraft Classic, and that's why I guess most of the content of Blight didn't really get that much attention. However, we do know that Blight has been nerfed multiple times since it got released. If you have Blight maps, they are a lot less rewarding, they're a lot harder. Back in the day, you could actually make a full Zombie Mancer and you could just AFK Blights and get insane rewards. Now that's not really the same. The rewards have been heavily nerfed multiple times. They have been nerfed from Blight, they have been nerfed from, I believe Ultimatum was the last time Blights were nerfed. Metamorph was pretty okay league, no one really cared about, pretty shitty mechanics in general, but it just kind of shows you the level of personal investment into league mechanics. Most of those league mechanics were very fun, however, most of them are no longer viable. You cannot, let's say if you're a normal person, let's say like ultimatums. I, as a person, want to be able to go in and just farm ultimatums, kind of like endless heist. I just want to be able to say, fuck it, I don't like mapping. I want to go and just do ultimatums. I want to just sit around and do circles of ultimatums and have fun. However, every league mechanic since then has been nerfed to give you a lot less rewards. Ritual had been nerfed 4 times. It got nerfed during Ritual, got nerfed during Ultimatum, and got nerfed again during Expedition. Many things during the league have been getting nerfed especially hard. Delirium 5 orbs actually get nerfed pretty much every single league since Delirium League, because I've been farming it, I know how much money I can expect to receive, and I know that I'm getting a lot less rewards than I used to. Even though now you can get 18 loot tiles of Scarabs, for example, they're not even worth running because the quality and quantity of those Scarabs have been nerfed insanely hard. This league, they actually expected us to farm 5 Orb Deliriums. However, the quality of those Scarabs has been reduced so heavily that you very rarely see gilded Scarabs, not as much as you used to. Most of them would sell for half the price if you sell them in bulk, and most of them would just be useless. I personally run a couple of those maps, I would say like 10 or 15, and I barely broke even farming those 18 loot tiles Delirium orbs. Not very profitable, not very good, and they take a lot of time investment. They also nerfed map fracturing, they also nerfed other mechanics that would make the content fun. Oh, especially Beyond got nerfed. Beyond was a pretty bad league in my opinion, but Beyond did give us more juice in maps. So as you can see, little by little, they have been reducing their power, kind of forcing us to stick to mapping and not really giving us any freedom to choose what content you want to do. I would say Delve is the only content that's kind of survived. It's heavily nerfed, it's unplayable, but at least you can just go in and do Delve and no one can stop you. This is what I kind of want for the game. I want to be able to just do my content. I don't want to do mapping. I find mapping very boring and tedious, and but unfortunately, every league is being nerfed in terms of rewards, in terms of how it plays, to a point where we just cannot farm this content and make the same profits we used to see before, which kind of makes people have a pretty high opportunity cost of farming those. For example, there are people farming expeditions these days, but they are making considerably less money than they used to. Now, for the past, I would say 6 leagues, we have been seeing severe nerfs. It started in Expedition League, a little bit on Ultimatum. Ultimatum got slight nerfs, but they weren't that as bad as Expedition was. When Expedition came out, they announced it's all nerfs, and they didn't lie. They have been nerfing every build mechanic. For the past year and a half, I would say. It has happened before Expedition, but it hasn't been as strong or as noticeable. For example, all of the meta builds, all of the fun builds have been nerfed, and all of the concepts behind them have been nerfed, which is very important, because whenever you nerf a build, let's say you're nerfing a fire BV build, instead of just nerfing the damage on BV, instead of just nerfing something else, on an already expensive build, they nerf the archetype of the build. They nerf proliferation, they nerf fire conversion, they nerf duration on BV, so it's more tedious to use, it's less fun to use, and overall just less enjoyable to play. In such the same manner, they nerfed Cyclone Physical. Cyclone used to be a very fun build. Keydog has a very nice video on it, where he was having his Cyclone be bigger than his screen. It looks fun, it plays fun, that's how the game should be. However, they didn't like it, and they nerfed Cyclone to the ground, and it's not longer possible. Things like Tornado Shot doesn't exist anymore. I know you can play Tornado Shot if you have a mirror bow, but I'm talking about overall TS is just not playable. If you don't have insane amount of currency, most of those builds are unplayable anymore. Winter Orb is gone, Fire BV is gone, Tornado Shot is gone, Cyclone is gone. There are so many different archetypes. Cock is gone. There's so many different archetypes that have been getting nerfed steadily over time, pushing us to find different methods and different builds. However, there just isn't that much you can do whenever your choices are this limited. Every time an archetype gets nerfed instead of a gem getting nerfed, the whole set of gems and set of skills gets removed from the game because they're no longer possible. I was personally a massive enjoyer of Arc. I thought Arc was very fun. I was self-casting Arc back in Metamorph League, but since then they nerfed Cold Conversion, they nerfed Arc itself, and the monsters got a lot stronger, and they would just overwhelm you, and Arc became just not a playable skill anymore, unless you're playing Mines, which would be my point in a second. Every build that was fun to use, every build that was enjoyable, that was fast, it has been getting nerfed. Why? Well, because that's not the gameplay they want. They want us to have an experience of a dungeon crawler, a game where you are pretty much slowly moving in a direction towards a boss, towards a loot chest, for example, and you're just killing white monsters until you see a big rare, and then the big rare becomes a fight. Kind of like a Diablo 2. They're pretty much making PoE 2 into Diablo 2. Every encounter is going to be meaningless until you find a mini-boss or rare boss, a big Nemesis monster, and stuff like that. All of your builds that you have currently that are fun to play, that are fast to play, will no longer be viable. Why? Well, because they want you to be a bosser, a mapper, and they want you to have enough damage to get into the 16s. I know a lot of people have been complaining about people playing the same builds back in the day, and that was one of their reasons for nerfing some of the builds, some of the archetypes. Fire BV was very powerful, I agree, it should have gotten nerfed. However, Winter Orb wasn't that OP. Cyclone really wasn't that OP. Cock was a very meme build. It wasn't insanely good, it was just very fun to play. And at the same time, the numbers have not changed. You have to understand the numbers are still the same. If you look at PoE Ninja, most people are still playing the same build. 20% Lightning Strike, 10% Righteous Fire, well 20% if you include this, and Cyclone Ice Spear. You're playing the same 3 different builds as you did before. However, now, because of all the nerfs, you can't afford to play anything else. That's the problem. There is nothing else you can play. They have nerfed it so hard, they have to go and play very bad, very boring, and very slow builds. For example, in Expedition League, people are playing traps, people are playing minions, people are playing totems. None of those builds were very fun to play. And it only has been getting worse. Most people can't afford to play a good juicy build. This is obviously late in the league, it's already been almost a month since the league came out, but they have to understand that people are kind of being forced to play those unfun mechanics to get to endgame, because no build is really viable until you have a substantial amount of currency, especially considering the nerf of defenses and the buff to monster life and monster defenses themselves. They have been steadily nerfing monster defenses, but I don't think they're gonna keep that in PoE 2. I think they actually might increase the defenses soon enough to make it even harder than it was before. Now, where does this all go? Well, you see people playing Lightning Strike. Well, it's probably gonna be gone tomorrow. Next league, no Lightning Strike, go find something else. And what are you gonna be finding? You're gonna be playing the same boring ass build that's traps, minions, or totems. It's gonna go in a circle because the game developers want you to decrease chances of you playing something fast, something that in their mind breaks the game. However, what breaks the game is fun. You don't want to play anything that's that slow, that makes you kind of stay around and just slowly progress your map. You want to play something fast, you want to make a bunch of currency. Well, you really can't anymore, because they, for some reason, decided that they want to have a progression to your rewards. For example, they want you to be farming T16s, and they want you to have a kind of a journey from tier 1 to tier 16, making your build better, investing into your build, and somehow having fun doing that. However, what they also did is that they removed all the rewards from tier 1s into tier 16s. For example, Eldritch Altars only spawn in tier 16s and 14s, 15s. Legion monsters drop better rewards than tier 16s, whereas in tier 1s they don't really actually drop you that much currency. Essences are lower tier in lower tier maps. You can't drop Elder maps in any map below tier 14. So how exactly are you supposed to be making your build better and having a journey from tier 1 to tier 16 when literally 99% of all rewards are in tier 16s? Well, you play mines. That's how it's done. You play mines, you play minions, and you play boring builds that can't do this content on a relatively small investment because it's easier. Yes, it's easier. It's not that much fun though. And that's kind of the experience we've been seeing lately. I used to be a person that was complaining about game being too easy. I know, funny enough, but back in Delirium League, I was actually one of the people who was saying that builds are so powerful that you can just spend like a couple of exalts and make them good enough for T16s. And I kind of changed my mind. I do definitely change my mind seeing how it have turned out and how the changes been made. It is not very fun to have to farm for hundreds of hours just so your build can feel kind of okay. Let's be honest, most builds feel pretty shit right now, even if you have decent investment. Unless you have like a Headhunter, Inspired Learning, Mage Blood, or you're playing some new meta build, for example, like Jean Rowan's Self-Chill Inquisitor, your builds are going to be not so good. Most of the builds are going to be sluggish, most of the builds are going to be dying quite a lot because of the nerfs to defensives, and most builds just don't have the mechanics to support them to be able to clear maps in any efficient manner. We don't have that many choices. We don't have that many builds. And it's only going to get worse because the idea behind it is that they want to have for you a meaningful journey. A meaningful journey where it's a dungeon crawler. I'm personally a fan of dungeon crawlers, but not in this game. It is not going to be the same game. Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile in next patches is just going to be a dungeon crawler, where you are slowly progressing your maps, you're slowly progressing through acts, and your build is kind of being tested at every step of the way. Now, it sounds nice if you're a hardcore player, maybe, I'm not sure how hardcore is, but I would say 95% of people are not hardcore. They're playing softcore, they just want to have fun, no one wants to spend 90 hours, 100 hours just to make one build viable and make one build fun. I would say most people want to just get on the maps, want to mess around, play a fun build, and just play a different game afterwards. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. PoE has been that kind of game where you play something fun, you test some different builds, and once you get bored, you go ahead and play a different game. And they have actually been supporting that. They said that's fine. Just go in, have fun, and just move on. It's cool. Just play something else. Well, now it is turning out to be a lot more grindy, a lot more annoying to do. You're gonna spend 10 hours of your life just leveling a new alt. You're going to spend another 30 hours progressing your tier maps to T16. If you have not enough gear, you'll just get stuck in T11s or something. If you're playing a non-meta build, obviously. So the experience has gotten a lot slower. The rewards have gotten very far in between. Yes, you can still make tons of currency if you do a league mechanic. For example, I know Grimro was making a lot of currency farming. Legions, personally not my cup of tea. I preferred breaches. I made a bunch of money on breaches. But at no point would I say I'm having fun. You have to be honest with yourself. Step away from your personality. Step away from your character, and just ask yourself, am I having fun? At any point of playing the game, am I having fun, or am I just trying to fix frustrations? And that's how it feels to me. You're fixing frustrations by investing more currency into your build. You're making it tankier, you're making it do more damage, just so you can avoid very, very annoying and frustrating content. I want to make my build faster, so I can kill monsters before they see me. I want to make my build have more damage, so the monsters don't have time to attack. I want to have a bunch of armor stacking, because I don't like dying to random one-shots from off-screen. That's just how the game has been designed, to where it's all about avoidance of content, rather than you're being a part of this game. I know most builds are kind of designed to be glass cannon, to kill the content. However, it's not that bad of a content whenever it's in isolation, but because there are so many different mechanics that can one-shot you these days, it is not the same game where you can afford to be a glass cannon. For example, no one used to chaos resistance. No one used to have chaos res at all until they decided to invest more damage into poison effects in the game. So now a single tick of poison on you will pretty much one-shot you. If you're not capped on chaos res, or at least have above 0% chaos res. If you're in negatives, you pretty much die to chaos damage constantly. Back in the day, in Metamorph, which wasn't that far away, we didn't even cap our elemental resistances. Most people just had a Vizoke that was pretty much good enough for us. We would just run around one-shotting monsters, having fun, and yeah, sometimes you'll die. Sometimes I'll die. Sometimes you die twice a map, but you know what? You had a choice of not having to cap all those small things. You didn't have to cap spell suppression, well, it didn't exist back then, but you had evasion and stuff like that. You didn't have to cap evasion, you didn't have to do anything that took away from your character. Back then, you could have a fully unique character in terms of the character had all uniques and no real gear, and you'd still be fine. However, now it's very, very restraining to have uniques in your build because they take away so much from your build. You're not going to be capped on resistances, you're not going to have enough life, you're going to be missing a lot of important suffixes because for some reason, um, all of the good mods, such as Tailwind, Onslaught, Aspect of the Spider, they're all suffixes. They're limiting amount of resistances you can have. You're gonna be sacrificing resistances to get more damage, and vice versa. It is not very fun trade-off because it stops many builds from existing, such as Tunnel Shot, for example. It used to be a fully unique build, and now you can't really do that anymore. Unless you have like a Headhunter that just caps your resistances for you. There are many mechanics that don't exist anymore. I remember back in the day in Bestiary League, Q-Dog was playing Burning Arrow, he was having lots of fun playing it, and he was playing more or less a meme build. However, it was fun. Big Cyclone was fun. All of those things get gutted because they have a idea in their mind that they want to have a meaningful journey and a dungeon crawler in the game. Next leagues, I would expect to see a lot of more nerfs to speed, to how fast the builds are, how to movement. We actually have seen a lot of movement nerfs in the past year and a half. Assassin, which was one of the most popular ascendancies in the entire game, got gutted and no longer has the same move speed as they used to. Pathfinder was extremely fast, now it has been nerfed as well. However, it's still pretty okay if you can find a good build for it. What I'm trying to say is that PoE will not be the same game anymore. PoE does not have the same direction as it used to. PoE is not about gameplay, it's not about builds, it's not about making builds fun. It's about progressing the Atlas and having as much adversity as possible. They want you to suffer. This game is the masochist mode. We are all masochists because we play this game and expect it to get better next league. It never does. You do the same shit every time and you expect a different result. This is truly a definition of insanity. Delirium have made us all insane, and we keep on trying the same shit and we get the same results. But we always say it's gonna get better next league. What does it mean for me though? I know some of you have been asking me if I'm still playing the game. I have gotten banned from PoE for RMT. What I did was I sold all my currency that I made this league to buy myself some medicine because I have a lot of severe health problems, and pretty much that wasn't even enough to pay for it, but I had to do it for myself. It's not really an excuse. I know RMT is against the TOS, which is fine. I took my ban like a man, but I can still make a new account. Next league I'll still come back and I'll join you. I'll join you in the insanity and I'll say the next league will be better. And I'll actually believe it. But I know for a fact it's only gonna get worse. I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope you guys understand kind of the mentality behind the game. The main idea is that they don't want to get away from mapping. They want mapping to be the main game. They don't want fast builds. That's why they're nerfing all speed modifiers and all good builds to be obsolete in T16s, unless you have substantial investment, which, let's be realistic, most people don't have that. Most of people have maybe 5-10 divines, and that's enough for their league experiences, which is fine. Personally, I feel like if you're a casual player, you should be able to enjoy the game just like me. I don't think PoE should be a game for sweaty nerds like me who play it all day, every day, just for you to have fun. I think they have missed an entire opportunity in making Path of Exile a world of exile, or world of Rayclast, if you will. All those league mechanics that have been steadily nerfed every single league have been very fun during their leagues, but no longer viable. I really want to have some of those league mechanics make a return and actually be the same as they were before nerfs. I really want Expedition to be giving you the same rewards as it used to. Dujin got nerfed way too much. The gambling got nerfed way too many times. I really wanted to go back to where you have opportunities, you have ways to make the game, and you have fun doing it. PoE for me has always been about breaking the game and making it fun to play for me. I really wish it helps you guys. I guess I am a bit of a doomer when it comes to PoE, but I'm very realistic. I've been playing this game for a very long time. I know how GG thinks, and yeah, I'll see you next one. Hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you all next league. Bye bye. Here we go again.